Spring into love with the Breaking Script podcast with Lala and Nini.
This is where we explore the glimmer-filled world of Hallmark movies and the occasional Asian drama.
So let's get this therapeutic adventure started.
Welcome back. I'm Lala, a non-French speaking French Canadian.
And I'm Nini, a first-generation ABC, that's American-born Chinese, that speaks broken Chinglish.
And if you're new to the Breaking Script podcast, we are sister-in-laws on a mission to spread joy and glimmers, the opposite of triggers, while offering ways to open windows of tolerance through watching Hallmark movies. And we just finished The Way Home Season 2, and Asian dramas are coming up soon.
We have 4 unique segments that give you a guide to review, or what we like to call break script, with healthy and unhealthy romantic and unhealthy and healthy family relationships, as well as the unhealthy and healthy behaviors in these movies. And we always start with the movie summary or an episode recap that has been likened by fans to an audio spa. So even if you haven't had a chance to watch the movie, or you don't have access, you can still have an experience as if you did. That way you can follow along with our Boba ratings. Yes, our ratings are out of 10 Bobas. And 4 unique segments, I know you're going to love, of Breaking Script that magically turns your Hallmark movie watching experience or Asian drama watching experience into a more meaningful self-care session. And that's what this is. Lala, do you know, that's what I realized this week when I was like, meaning, what's the meaning and purpose? I didn't emphasize on our last episode. Especially nowadays, if you guys have been listening for a while, you know Lala and I are really into like true crime or cult documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
And there has been like an exorbitant amount coming out recently.
Seriously.
That you have to watch things like The Program or Quiet on Set and chase it with a Hallmark movie.
It's so true.
Right?
It's
It's
heavy,
like the buffer.
heavy stuff out there.
Super heavy. We need something to like calm down and oh, I didn't prepare you for this, but did you have any like real life glimmers? I know we talk about like glimmers that we find in Hallmark movies, but did you have any real life glimmers this last week or this weekend?
Oh, wow. You're really putting me on the spot. It's going to make my life sound horrible. I probably,
It was a tough week for us.
it was a tough week. I can't say off the top of my head. Well, my husband was away, so he came back.
I love
that was a
that
glimmer.
was a glimmer that he was away. No, sorry.
Not that he was away, that he came
That
back.
he came back. Yes. That's a huge glimmer.
It was. Yeah. What about you?
Because as you know, we both had some tough weeks and or like you're anticipating like the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just, before we hit record, I was explaining to Lala, like, you just feel it more in your body. Like, you know,
Yeah.
when you have like the anxiety that's not necessarily conscious and there's like these thoughts going through your head, it's just like you feel it in your body and you have to get the energy out. So like I'll try to rebound or like do jumping jacks or walk like to get the energy out. But this weekend, most of the kids were at their dad's house. I just have my older kids at home, which is basically like being home alone. And I made myself watch the sunset 2 nights in a row.
Oh, that's so nice.
And I can't remember the last time I'd done that. And I realized the first night I was so antsy. Like
really?
the urge to like get up and
Get up.
do something. It was really hard for me to watch the sunset, which is, I love sunsets. Like, and so I was like, oh, okay. This is a good indicator light of where my status is currently and my nervous system is currently. And then the next night I did so much better. Like I was able to sit there and then I even like went back out and I just like stared at the moon and I was like, I don't remember. You've been on our deck.
Yeah.
I don't remember the last time I remember seeing stars from my deck.
Oh, so it was so clear.
Stars.
That's so nice.
Yes, I know. So anyway.
That I actually, now that you say that, that so resonates with me. This was like the first weekend that I've had nothing on. And but I couldn't relax. It was like I was bored because I'm so used to being busy and I needed to do nothing, but like I couldn't. I kept being like, we should go do something. Should we go to the mall or should we go to the groceries? Like, and it was so hard for me to just sit. It literally Saturday, I can't tell you the last Saturday I've had that was free. Like I actually can't tell you that. And that was really difficult.
Wow.
So then Sunday when it was mostly free. I was because Saturday I was so bored and antsy, but Sunday it was still hard, but less hard. And you just don't realize how accustomed you are to
Totally.
not being able to relax and rest. You just have to be doing
Yes.
something. Anyways, I
Yes.
guess that was a glimmer. I did get a weekend off.
Yay. The
Yay.
glimmers. Do that, guys. It's so helpful to point out
Mhm.
glimmers and then share it with a friend. It really
Mm,
helps. There is science behind that. When you do interactive
yeah,
gratitude or interactive sharing glimmers.
good.
Anyway, also we did a bait and switch on you guys.
Oh,
Sorry if
yes.
you're a Heine and you listened last week thinking it was a possibility we were doing switching gears today, or
Or if you
Legend of the Lost Locket.
yeah. That's funny.
Sorry. Psych. Did you say that when you were younger? Am I aging up?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
We are doing the latest Hannah Swensen mystery today, and I have to say, after watching it, Lola, I'm curious. Uh, how do you feel about what we're gonna do next week? Is our 50th episode, and we're gonna be doing Fall into Love with Niagara, which I feel like is
Mhm.
such a way to celebrate our 50th episode since you're Canadian. Like, I love
Yeah.
that. That feels appropriate. But then the week after, are we going to be doing branching out or are we going to be doing a mystery? Because there is Curious Caterer. Did you see the previews for that when you were watching this one?
No, I didn't. But not to give any spoilers on this
Yes.
episode, but I might be okay not doing a mystery.
Sorry. There's two coming up. There's Curious Caterer with Nikki DeLoach and Andrew Walker. That one's called Foiled Plans. That one has like, it's like a costume party or something.
Oh, wait, is that the kind of medieval style one?
Yes.
Okay, I did see that, and of course, I am a sucker for a mystery. So like it
I
gets me
know.
every time, but I don't know if this movie was any indication of how that one is. I might not want to watch it.
I have to say, out of their mysteries, I watched Aurora Tea Garden during COVID when I was really
Mhm.
sick. And so I don't know if I just have like blurred, fuzzy memories of like, I feel like those were okay.
Yeah.
Uh, my favorite mystery this year is True Justice, Family Ties. It was written by Nikki DeLoach. She started
Mm.
it and had Benjamin Ayers. He didn't get paid. He just had had a part. I love that that they discussed that. So yeah, and then there's one coming up called Family Practice Mysteries.
Oh, I didn't see
I
that one.
know. I don't know if that's going to start a new series, but how do you feel about like medical mysteries?
They somewhat trigger my anxiety, so
Okay, so we're not going to be doing that one.
well, but here's the thing. What we know about Hallmark, it's not going to be that intense, right? Right? So it might not.
I have to say, I think it was the last Curious Caterer. It was the one before this one was so intense, like involved a kidnapping that I was like,
Oh.
this is way more intense than I expected. So, anyways, we probably just need to like, if these are too intense for you, I suggest When Calls the Heart. This is Nini's part before we dive into it, where I give you the non-spoiler alert review of the When Calls the Heart episode. Episode 1 was basically about a haircut. Episode 2 was about planning a birthday party. The end. That's my quick review before we dive into it. Let's just do it. Let's dive in, shall we?
Let's do it.
This is the part of our episode where Nini here reads aloud a wonderful audio spa-like recap of today's movie, which is One Bad Apple, a Hannah Swensen mystery. It premiered on the Hallmark Mystery channel on April 5th, 2024. Now, truly, I tried. I wanted to make this so much shorter, but this is Lala and Nini's first mystery, for sure, first murder mystery that we've broken script with on the Hallmark channel or Hallmark Mystery. And it is challenging to get this summary without details, especially for those of you who haven't watched it and need to know the details and follow along. So I'm going to do my best. I'm going to be reading super fast, but hopefully you still have that same relaxing, windows of tolerance opening, glimmer feeling. That's the opposite of triggers. That helps the, chores or work or whatever it is, time past so much quicker and in a more pleasant way. So here it is. I present to you One Bad Apple, the Hannah Swensen of the Hannah Swensen Mysteries. I'm going to put in the show notes. This is number 9 of the Hannah Swensen Mysteries, if you're not familiar with the Hallmark channel or Hallmark Mysteries. There was 3 previous Hannah Swensen Mysteries, and previous to that they were called Murder She Baked, but it's still from the same Joanne Fluke based on her books. So these are the Hannah Swensen Mysteries. Here we go. This one opens with the cutest cold open. We begin outside the Lake Eden Community College, where Hannah Swensen is unloading her car with her bakery's logo on it, the Cookie Jar Bakery. We, the audience, have a view of Hannah through a camera lens like the kind used to take stalkery pictures. She pulls out an apple with a knife in it and looks around suspiciously, but shrugs it off and keeps going. She doesn't seem to have the same ominous feels we are getting from this camera view and the accompanying ominous music. She goes into the community college and her baking class and informs her students they are making apple turnovers from scratch that day. An English professor drops in, namely Professor Bradford Ramsey, who apparently was the one who suggested that Hannah teach Intro to Baking at this community college, and he has some common students also taking Hannah's Baking 101 class. He asks her on a date, and in the same breath, before Hannah even has a real chance to answer, he asks her to collaborate on an assignment for their students, because a lot of the novels he assigns in his English Lit class has wonderful food imagery. And Hannah agrees. She says it's a great idea to, quote, examine how food metaphor and imagery and how it develops complex ideas in literature. Okay. A student named Willa asks Professor Ramsey if it was really his idea that Hannah teaches this baking class, and they exchange flirty glances, and he takes full credit for it. Someone is still taking Hannah and Bradford's pictures, those like stalkery camera lens, in the baking classroom. Hannah catches a peek of the sus photographer in the bushes outside, and she smirks. We get a quick, lovely shot of what we can only assume is the lake of Lake Eden before we follow Hannah going from teaching to her cookie jar bakery storefront. Her mom is busy at a table and also very secretive with a guest that Hannah has never seen before. As soon as said guest leaves, Hannah takes the opportunity to ask her mom why she was taking pictures of her. Like, why are you taking photos without people's knowledge or consent? Her mom says it's very hush-hush and she can't discuss at the moment, but she's exploring a new path not taken. And then she bails on their special dinner plans together that night. Hannah moves on from their conversation to make some caramel apple tarts that have been immaculately and beautifully placed and patterned apple slices, and she serves them just before greeting Norman as he walks into the bakery. If you're new to the Hannah Swensen Mysteries, Norman is a dentist and a guy that Hannah's mom, Dolores, has been trying to set up Hannah with for years, even when Hannah was with Mike, who was a detective, but Mike has moved on. They were engaged at some point. We'll get to that more later. Anyway, they're just good friends. Hannah finds out from Norman that her mom bailed on their dinner plans only to replace herself with Norman instead for that evening. She suggested that they take their reservations at the fancy restaurant called The Chameleon. Norman is actually dating someone named Diana, so Hannah says Diana should come along too. So the plan is for them to be a happy trio at 7 p.m. at the Chameleon. Norma also says he's been wanting to say to Hannah how sorry he has been about how Mike moved on to Quantico. Mike was Hannah's fiance, but they had a tiff over how Hannah handled one of their last murder cases, and their relationship was just not the same afterward. But ultimately he moved on because it's for the FBI. It was an incredible opportunity, so they broke off the engagement. Mike gave her a cat named Moisha, or it's very likely, I might not be remembering correctly, but she had a cat named Moisha. He either gave her the cat or he gave her the cat tower to show her he cared, because he didn't really care for the cat, and that he wanted to support what Hannah likes even if he doesn't like it. Anyway, just before dinner, Hannah's sister Andrea calls because she can't find their mother, and then she makes sure Hannah up-levels her outfit for the dinner with Norman and is frustrated how Hannah seems oblivious to Norman's feelings for Hannah. She goes to the Chameleon with Norman. Diana's working, so it's just the two of them, and Hannah sees Willa, her student from the baking class, and also Professor Bradford Ramsey's student, running out of the restaurant crying. And then during dinner with Norman, she catches her mom sitting at another table, hiding behind a menu conspicuously, or trying to be conspicuous. She approaches her mom. They end up going to the restroom together for the discussion where Dolores finally feels ready to tell her daughter what she's been up to. Dolores has been training to be a private investigator and already opened her own agency. She was surprised at how many women have a desperate need of her services to keep an eye on their cheating partners. She also primps Hannah's hair and puts more lipstick on Hannah. When Hannah returns to the table with Norman, she sees Professor Bradford up above in the restaurant having dinner with his ex-wife. The next day, Hannah heads to Lake Eden's municipal building, and that's where she meets Chad Norton, our new male lead of the Hannah Swensen Mysteries, the county prosecutor for Lake Eden, who is prepping her for her upcoming deposition for the case regarding Ken Purvis. Because out of the 9 murder cases in the Hannah Swensen Mysteries for the Hallmark Channel thus far, apparently she's never had to do this before. If you don't know me, I'm being sarcastic. Anyway, Chad tries to assure her and calm her nerves. On her way to Professor Ramsey's office, Hannah runs into her student Willa again and her friend between classes at the community college. Willa introduces Hannah to her brother Perry. Then Tim Pearson, Professor Ramsey's TA, walks by and invites the students to a party he's hosting and introduces himself to Hannah also. Hannah is waiting for Bradford in his office to talk to him about their collaboration for class. But then she starts snooping while she's waiting for him, and she finds a note from Stacy, his ex-wife, and a graded paper that has a big fat F circled. She's startled when Bradford finally walks in and catches her snooping. She tells him she just came to discuss their collaboration for class tomorrow. He says he would prefer to discuss their dinner date. She pushes that off and says she would like to do cakes from Jane Eyre, and he sees a note on his desk that distracts him as she's still talking, and then he proceeds to rush Hannah out of the office while saying he will get back to her on her final choice of what the students should be baking in their collaboration of a class tomorrow. She needs an answer soon, Professor Ramsey. Anyway, he hurries her off rudely because of a meeting with the dean about his TA again, or at least that's what he says, and then he quotes poetry so cringily about her departing. Anyways, the next day in class, the chosen dessert is from To Kill a Mockingbird. They are making a Charlotte Russe, is what it's called. It's ladyfingers with Bavarian cream filling, or Hannah says they could even fill it with chocolate mousse. And if they're more advanced, you could do a fruit puree. Anyway, Professor loved the book so much he named his dog Boo Radley. While Hannah is instructing the students, there's a heated discussion between Professor Ramsey and his TA, Tim Pearson. Then Hannah invites Bradford, when he's done talking to his TA, to start making a Charlotte Russe with her. Well, he turns on the stove and an explosion sets off. I mean, you guys, the explosion is only on this little camping stove at the front of the classroom, and literally the entire classroom looks like it's been burnt down. Well, not the classroom, but the students look like they've been affected by a roaring fire. Anyhow, sitting outside around the classroom just after the explosion while paramedics are doing their duty and children or students, not children, but students are waiting around for interviews of witnesses of what has happened. The evidence of the explosion is all over the faces and clothes, and we see Hannah and Professor talking to the side while Willa and Pam and a friend sit waiting to be interviewed. But then Perry, Willa's brother, comes by concerned and takes Willa with him. Lonnie is the lead detective examining the baking classroom, and now that Mike is gone, this is his first case on his own. The fire marshal isn't satisfied with the initial findings and wants to do more of an investigation of the explosion because he tells Hannah it likely wasn't an accident. From the community college, Hannah goes to the bakery to see her concerned mom, who's showing a concerned Norman the video that a student took of the explosion. Dolores smiles and tells Hannah, thanks to this video, Hannah will likely go viral before the end of the day. While Norman is voicing his concerns for Hannah, Bradford walks in and Norman welcomes him to Lake Eden. She introduces Bradford to Norman, and even Bradford mistakes that Norman and Hannah are together. It's a super awkward moment where Norman and Hannah assures him they are just friends, but Bradford can clearly see Norman has feelings for Hannah, even if it's not reciprocated, and might still be competition. And the super cringy conversation ends with Normie and Chaperu, what they call each other, both vying for Hannah's attention and affections. Thank God, Hannah has to excuse herself for her deposition for the Ken Purvis case. Hannah exchanges a few lines with Chad Norton, the prosecuting attorney, and just like that, the deposition is over apparently. Hannah finds her mom putting flyers in car windshields at the gym, or is it the municipal building? I can't tell. But she says that people go to the gym because they are either looking for someone they knew, they are either looking for someone new or they feel that their partner is. Anyway, Hannah knows Stacey Ramsey is Dolores' client, but Stacey and Bradford have been divorced for years, but her mom won't tell her why Stacey is a client. Hannah's bakery assistant tells her that she needs to tell Bradford she doesn't want to date him in person. So Hannah once again goes to meet Bradford in his office, and instead this time finds him dead on his office floor. Clearly some time passes as the authorities arrive on the scene, and Hannah is with the TA outside of the police line, right outside of Bradford's office, and she's talking with Tim Pearson and is pretty suspicious of this TA as they're talking together. And Chad Norton arrives on the scene to discuss what's going on with Lonnie. This is Lonnie's first investigation as a lead detective without Mike Kingston, who was Hannah's ex-fiance. But anyway, he tells Chad that they think the explosion, the video that went viral is how he saw it, and the murder are related. Now Lonnie calls Hannah across the crime scene police tape and lets Mr. Norton know that Hannah was the one who found Professor Bradford Ramsey's body. Cut to the next scene. Hannah and her sister Michelle and their mom are gathered at Hannah's bakery and starting a suspect list of their own, with their mom taking lead. They have the TA because he didn't agree with Professor Bradford Ramsey's grading or teaching style. One of the students was failing because Hannah saw the paper, but they don't have the name of who was failing. And there was a clue. There was a custom greeting card next to Bradford's body. Now Dolores, Hannah's mom, mentions Stacey Ramsey bought Lake Eden's flowers and gift shop 2 years ago and sells high-end gifts and gift cards. Then Hannah goes and meets up with Willa and her friend Pam. She brings brownies, cookie bars, chocolate marshmallow bars. That'll come again later. She finds out that a lot of the students really didn't appreciate Bradford Ramsey's tough grading system. They mention like Kyle, the kid who made the viral video. Willa seems more distraught and is for sure crying more than any other student over Professor Ramsey's death. She's also super defensive of Bradford and actually uses his first name instead of saying Professor Ramsey. You could see it in her face that she knows she accidentally called him by his first name. When Willa leaves, Pam lets Hannah know that Willa had a crush on Professor Ramsey. That's why she's so upset. Pam doesn't believe that the professor let her on, but Willa made it seem like there was something between them, but she thinks it was just wishful thinking. In a conversation between Lonnie and Chad Norton, we learned that the crime scene was organized, quick, and planned. There was nothing off of the knife, there was no fingerprints, but what they did know was that the knife was from the baking class, the specific classroom where Hannah was the teacher. And not only that, he told Chad Norton it was Hannah's knife, and he's telling him just as Hannah walks in to give Lonnie some desserts. Chad asked if she's there to turn herself in. Apparently she's never been a suspect, and she drops that box of desserts dramatically. Cut to another scene where we see Dolores in her PI mode whispering with Stacey about secret calls and sneaking away. Stacey says she knows she sounds crazy, and Dolores goes on to take some pictures of paperwork that she finds around Stacey's shop. And instead of using her discreet camera phone, she decides to use her huge SLR camera to take pictures of said paperwork, and she even goes through the mail and happens to find the life insurance policy info in the mail. Dolores heads to the bakery to discuss her updates in the investigation with Hannah, her sister Michelle, Hannah's sister Michelle, and Norman. Why Norman? I don't know, but he's there. Anyway, Dolores tells them that Stacey is the beneficiary on Bradford Ramsey's life insurance policy. So now, in addition to Hannah, Stacey is added to her suspect list. They think the custom card is probably from Stacey also. Michelle says, well, what if he broke someone else's heart recently? Maybe not just Stacey's. Hannah says, maybe Willa. But then they all say, but it seems like premeditated murder, not a passionate spur-of-the-moment attack because of how organized it was. Anyway, in another scene, you see that Lonnie still needs the code to unlock Professor Bradford Ramsey's phone. And Hannah is concerned. Classes end next week and all the students are going home soon, so it's like a race against the clock. Cut to the next scene where Lonnie finds new evidence, bloody gloves. Then Hannah shows up in Stacey's florist shop looking for custom cards. She's on the phone with her sister. Andrea's concerned for Hannah's safety and wants her to call Mike, the ex-fiance, for protection. Hannah will not. She gets off the phone and offers baked goods and condolences to Stacy. She mentions that she knows Stacy was the recipient of Bradford's life insurance. Stacy assures her she didn't need that money. Her business has exploded, but she doesn't mind that she's been a suspect because facts are facts and her bank account speaks for itself, whatever that means. That night, Hannah is in her house talking over the remaining suspects with Moisha, yes, her cat. She hears suspicious sounds around her house and grabs a ladle for protection. A ladle, of all things. This baker who has all kinds of kitchen utensils, she grabs a ladle. Anyway, it ends up, thank goodness, just being her sisters, Andrea and Michelle. Michelle tells both her sisters that Lonnie had a huge break and now has DNA from the gloves that he found. So Hannah goes to look for Chad Norton the next day and brings a variety of her best cookies from the bakery because he didn't accept the last ones. But he tells her he doesn't have a sweet tooth and doesn't even take one. Next scene, Dolores is taking pictures of Stacy's boyfriend, obviously discreetly, like PI style, and he's leaving a store with a tarp, duct tape, and a rope, and he's literally holding it so we can all see it perfectly. Anyway, she shares her concerns with Hannah that Stacy's boyfriend is probably planning either a murder or planning to remove a body. She's concerned. He could be a suspect. Now, Norman helps Hannah create a distraction so that she can go into the community college and to the school records to find the name of the failing student of Professor Webster Branfy. Whoa, say that 10 times fast. Professor Bradford Ramsey. It was Kyle, the kid that made the viral video. He was failing, and he was an English lit major. Anyway, we also find out that the sweat residue in the glove is male DNA. Moving on, Hannah goes to the community college's art fair and finds out that Pam is the one who made the custom cards because she has a booth set up selling her cards. And Hannah finds in Pam's photos of previous cards that she made the exact card that was found next to Professor's dead body. Hannah confronts Kyle and is clearly suspicious of him. It doesn't go well. Chad finds Hannah at his office again. They exchange some words about how Chad doesn't get involved at this point in the case, and he tells her he needs to give her information to Detective Lonnie Murphy instead of him. Next scene, the sisters and their mother again have dinner to discuss the suspect list. Stacy's boyfriend is added to the suspect list. Stacy thinks her boyfriend has been cheating on her, and a male suspect would have to have access to stealing a custom card. So now they're brainstorming on how that's happening. Anyways, Hannah's class is tasked with chocolate chip cookies for the final of her class, because surely a college would continue classes after murder on their campus, right? Anyway, Pam tells Hannah that Willa didn't show up because she hasn't left her room in days and isn't doing well. So Hannah goes to Willa's room and finds her brother Perry at the door, who says he would appreciate her help with Hannah. Of course, Hannah brings Willa's favorite chocolate marshmallow bars. Willa has given up on everything, and Hannah suggests grief counseling, but Willa is resistant. Back at the Chameleon restaurant, Hannah is meeting her sisters and her mom, but she runs into Chad Norton first at the bar, and there's a different vibe to their conversation suddenly. Like maybe there could possibly be something romantic in the future, hint hint. Anyways, they discuss the case a little, and then Chad gets up when his blonde date arrives. Hannah looks a little disappointed. And when Hannah's sisters and mom finally arrive, they tease Hannah about how she keeps looking over at Chad Norton's table. Then Chad kindly and with charm comes over to say goodbye to them before he leaves and is introduced to Hannah's sisters and mom. The next day, Norman and Hannah are looking over the case details thus far, just like, a murder board in Hannah's bakery. And Norman says something that makes Hannah realize that Stacy's boyfriend isn't preparing to dispose of a body. No, he bought a tarp, duct tape, and a rope to plan, what do you think it is, guys? An elaborate proposal. Wouldn't you gather that? Anyway, Hannah figures out that the password for Bradford's phone is Radley and quickly calls Lonnie. Tells her that Radley is his dog. Lonnie tries it and it works. Then Hannah and Norman leave the flower shop to go look for Willa because she would know if Pam was friends with Tim or Kyle for them to end up with her custom greeting card. At
Everything starts off as a chipper convo, but then as Hannah and Norman are realizing things aren't good and try to leave, Willa pulls a gun on Norman and Hannah and pressures them outside with the gun, clearly to shoot them. And as they're walking, Hannah leaves a trail of bright blue cupcake liners she just happens to have in her pocket. Willa doesn't notice at all. She still has a gun pointed at them. There's some chaos. They've reached like this woodsy clearing area, and Norman gets Hannah to run and hide. He's trying to calm Willa while Willa is trying to get Hannah to come out. Then Perry comes to help Willa, and that's when we realize he was the one that killed Professor Bradford Ramsey. When Hannah and Norman were in Willa's dorm apartment, Hannah's sister had called Lonnie to let him know that they tracked her location and know that she's probably following a lead on a case and is in danger because, well, they just know her at this point. Cut back to the scene outside with Willa and Perry threatening Norman and Hannah's lives with a gun and fighting for the gun and wrestling with each other. And just when you think they're probably all going to die or someone's going to die, Lonnie sees the bright blue cupcake liners and follows them. So Chad and Lonnie come to the rescue, and even Hannah's mom, Dolores, is on the scene. And when they leave the crime scene, Dolores is arm in arm with Chad escorting her off screen or off the crime scene. Then we cut to a lovely, calming, golden voiceover montage of Hannah making caramel apple roses, which she then takes and gives to Chad Norton, or offers them to Chad Norton. They have a brief exchange as usual and are all smiles. He still doesn't take a caramel apple rose and says she's a bad influence, but he walks away with a compliment and a smile. The closing scene gives all the feels. It's the homey kitchen of Hannah's, and there's family time with her sisters and Norman, because of course Norman saved Hannah, so that makes sense, and he loves her caramel, as she says, apple roses, as does her sisters and her mom. They look really yummy, actually, and they have a discussion on whether or not Bradford led Willa on. Michelle informs them that when Lonnie was finally able to get into the phone, he found steamy two-way texts between Professor Bradford and Willa, so it wasn't just in Willa's imagination. Perry knew that, and that's why he set the explosion off to scare Bradford. But Bradford turned it around on Perry and threatened to get him expelled from school. That's what this whole movie was about, classic gaslighting and threats. Perry felt cornered and killed. Was it self-defense? We will never know. And then it's just all happy from there. Stacy said yes to her boyfriend's proposal, Mom solved her case and is getting referrals and has another confirmed client, and we wrap on the girls toasting their mother's PI success. And that is it for One Bad Apple, a Hannah Swensen mystery starring Alison Sweeney, Victor Webster, and Barbara Niven.
And now, as a part of our episode where we give this movie a rating out of 10 bobas, we have 4 different categories. We have writing out of 10, characters out of 10, how funny it was out of 10, and our overall rating. So, Nini, what did you give the writing of this movie?
So, because I've watched the other mysteries, you have to understand this was number 9 in the Hannah Swensen Mysteries.
Oh my gosh.
So if you
9?
haven't seen that, yeah, this was number 9.
Okay, that makes sense. That we can
because
talk
there's a
about that
lot
later.
that you missed out on.
Correct.
So, I mean, Alison Sweeney has been in all of them. It used to be called Murder, She Baked. So there are 5 Murder, She Baked episodes, and then they switched to call them a Hannah Swensen Mystery. So it'd be like how this one was One Bad Apple, colon, a Hannah Swensen Mystery. So there's 3 before this. But this is based on, let's talk about Hallmark book clubs, shall we? This woman, Joanne Fluke is the author's name, has over 30 books in her name, but there's 30 Hannah Swensen mystery books.
Yes, I'm familiar with Joanne Fluke. Joanne Fluke. I'm pretty sure I read one of, because I told you I'm a fan of cozy mysteries. So
even
my
books?
favorite
Cozy mystery books?
yeah, my favorite
yes
cozy mystery author. She actually since passed a couple years ago. MC Beaton of the Agatha Raisin mystery series. There's 30 books almost. And I have read every single one. They come out every year in the fall, and I always buy it. I always read it. It is my absolute favorite. So I'm familiar with this author, but I I feel like I have read a book, but this series didn't like spark any
It-
memories for me. So I don't know.
Well, a lot of them, over 20 of them, are free on Audible, by the way.
Oh, okay,
I
good to
know.
know. I
It's like
might
if you
try
have
that
an
out.
Audible membership, they're free. Um, she has one that's coming. It's called Pumpkin Chiffon Pie Murder, which I'm wondering, like, is that going to be what we're getting of Hannah Swensen in the fall? So we'll see. Anyways, I gave the writing a 7.
What?
Alison Sweeney, because listen, for number 9, if you have seen the rest of the 8, you would understand my 7. I will
Oh.
say I have to back up my 7 by saying it kept losing my interest.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that I didn't guess who the killer was. That's what made it a 7. Otherwise, it would have been like a 6 or a 5, possibly.
Mm.
But I also don't think there were any clues that led to who the killer was going to be. So it would have been like out of the like knocked it out of the ballpark, 100 out of 100 if I didn't know. But then when I looked back, there were so many Easter eggs and clues that my response would
Right.
be like, "Oh my gosh, how did I miss that?" But anyway, that's why the writing got a 7, because I didn't guess who the killer was. But I did lose
Mhm.
interest, and I had to watch like a bajillion times.
Okay. So one thing I have to say, and I think I've mentioned this a couple episodes ago, I have recently been on a Law and Order kick. Like I've always loved Law and Order, but I'm just like
Yeah.
really in deep with like SVU. They're doing a Law and Order Toronto, so that's how I kind of got back into it. And then Organized Crime, which is the best one. So,
This is
and
going
I
to
mean,
affect your ratings
Dick Wolf, yeah,
significantly.
it's just a master. So I think this has affected my ratings. Also, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I knew it was Perry only because he was too random of a character. They didn't do a great job in weaving his like either it's
Yeah.
going to be that random person.
Oh,
Um,
makes sense.
you
Okay.
know what I mean? So I gave it a 4.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Okay,
Okay.
what did you give the characters?
Um, again, it got a
7?
higher rating. I gave it a 7 because I felt like they had great supporting actors in this one.
Okay.
Like Pam the friend stayed mysterious enough to keep us guessing. Andrea the sister brings a lot. They changed sister characters in like the middle of the series.
Oh,
I know, like it's the same name, but it's a different actor.
gotcha.
The cat Moisha, I thought was an important character. I'm really digging deep here.
Gotcha.
This is why it got a 7. I liked the Vig Webster who played Chad Norton,
Mm.
opposite of Alison Sweeney, more than I liked Cameron Matheson. So I think this is what affected your ratings, is because you're watching number 9 of the series without any
I
context.
agree. I agree.
So you have 0, because literally she was engaged to a police
Mike?
detective named Mike.
Mm.
All you got was he went to Quantico, he went to Great American Family.
Oh,
And so, which not, I mean, there are people that movies will get picked up on both, so it's not like never.
yeah.
But I really did like their chemistry a lot better. Alison Sweeney and Vic Webster um also were in the Wedding Veil trilogy.
Okay.
Not my favorite. Probably will
Mm.
not be reviewing it on this podcast. Um, but I like their chemistry. They work well together. That was probably the only one of the wedding veils I liked, was because I don't know if there was like their honeymoon or their vacation. It was a vacation, was in Greece, and it totally had
Mm.
like Yaya Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants vibes. That's it for my long
I gave
explanation.
characters a 4. Um, we can get into why I get into why a little bit later. And then for how funny it was, I only gave it a 2. I did not really laugh. Like I get it was funny. Barbara Niven playing the mother, she was cute and it
Yeah.
was like fun. Like that was probably the only time where I was like, ah, but I didn't like ha ha anywhere.
I gave her an 8. This was I gave Barbara Niven an 8.
An 8. Okay, and I get that.
Everyone else is like, it was a 6. Again, this is number 9.
You're right.
So out of the previous ones, I loved Barbara Niven, the mother Dolores's character, best in number 9.
Mm.
And Normie and Chaperou's banter. Like, there were things in this that made it better than the previous ones.
Okay. Okay, that's good to
So
know.
therefore, that's why I have such long explanations to apparently justify my high
Okay, so then
ratings.
what was
Anyway.
your overall rating?
It was a 6.5 because I kept losing interest.
Okay, yeah, mine was a 5 out of 10. Again, middle of the road. Like, I wouldn't say this
Totally.
was the absolute worst movie I've ever seen. I just think that it wasn't the best.
I totally agree. Love it. I think you did great considering you came in at number 9. It's a big deal. So let's just dive into our breaking script breakdown with our 4 unique segments. Our first one is now called Ay Boo Ay, What's Love Got to Do with It? It's where we talk about glimmers and what we love and breaking down the romantic and family relationships. When I got to this question, I just had this like, I don't know what it is. When I talk to like my cousins, only the ones that speak Mandarin,
Mhm.
I'll pick up the phone and be like, hello. And then if it's one of them, be like, hi. Like, I don't know why our voices get really high and it's almost
Hi.
like high pitched, whiny. It's weird. So, anyways, after this movie, I just hear in my head, like, I pu ai, Wichita, which means I don't know. Like, ugh. I was not inspired to break script with this movie.
No, me neither. I actually, this is probably the first, like, there really wasn't any glimmers for me. I think the only one that I really had to like dig deep for was that the college atmosphere reminded me of my college experience, which felt nice, like where they were sitting in like the library, or I think we called that the student hub.
Oh, yeah.
What it looked like the college that I went to. Um,
Oh, okay.
and then, I mean, that was it for family relationships. I just said like the relationship with Hannah and her mom and sisters was really sweet, but there was nothing really there to comment on.
Yeah, again, you came in at number 9. So I'll
Correct.
comment on that. I had to dig really deep for glimmers. Like, first line as well. I like food. I like that food was
I
involved.
like that
But
food.
the sad thing is the desserts weren't like my favorite. Like, and here's
Mm,
the thing about Joanne Fluke's books. Every single one of her books is about a murder. So Hannah Swensen Mysteries is always going to be about a murder, which like not all Hallmark mysteries are murders. Like you can have a mystery without a murder. Yes.
correct.
Okay. So if it was like the cream puff murder or the chocolate chip cookie murder, like I'm here for it. But apple turnover or candy apple, what were I was impressed that there were actually 3 different apple desserts and it wasn't just apple pie. Like it was
True.
apple turnover, caramel apple tart actually looked good.
That did sound good.
And then a caramel apple rose sounded good too. So I don't know. This was based on the book titled Apple Turnover Murder. So I was like, okay, I'm glad that it opened with a class making apple turnovers, but I wanted it to be more. I'm sorry, this is going into like Oi with the Poodles. I won't go there. My glimmer was the cold open was decent, or I don't know if that's even the cold open. It was just the title montage. I thought it was cute and creative that they had like, it looked like blood, but it ended up being her making a candy
Candy
apple.
apple. I did think that that was clever.
And then it was like I guess the cold open would be like her mom was like, well, you didn't know, you saw someone's taking pictures
Taking
of her.
pictures. Yes.
You thought it was a dangerous stalker, but no, it was just her mom.
Yeah.
So it was a decent open and close. Those are my only glimmers.
Yeah.
Like better than past, where like the closing
Mm,
scene gave you like all the feels. It was like a homey kitchen with like family time. And it was like, it gave you like everything came to like a fluffy cozy ending, right? Like
hmm
Norman saved Hannah. There were yummy caramel apple roses. Stacy said yes to her boyfriend's proposal. Mom solved her case and is getting referrals. Like at least it made sense for the most part.
Right.
Sometimes it doesn't. And so if you don't have that context, it might not be a glimmer for you. But anyways, I don't know. I have to say that out of 9 episodes, this was my favorite, or movies. They're not episodes, they're full movies.
Movies.
But I felt like this was my favorite. And if you're a Hannah Swensen fan, you can comment at me if you want. This was my favorite portrayal of Hannah's relationship with her sisters and her mother.
Oh.
So before this movie, I believe Hannah's mom was an author. Like she did book signings. She wrote some
Okay.
kind of like novel. She did book signings in Hannah's Bakery before this.
Okay.
So it was a huge glimmer and like a positive thing that you have now. Her mom went from author to a PI. Like, I love a woman going after her second act. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but also it brought a humor because before this, she was the anxious mom that didn't want Hannah going after all these murders and putting herself in dangerous situations. But
Oh,
it was a little bit of a whiplash. Like, she went
I
from like
could see that.
concerned mother to like pushing her into it because now she's a PI or like
Yeah.
helping her. So, but I appreciate it. Like, it was sweet. So there has been like character development over 9 movies.
I'd
You
hope
just
so.
didn't catch it in them. Well, listen, it's not a guarantee in these movies.
True.
And like I said, I liked the Victor Chad character more than I liked the Cameron
Good to know.
Mike character. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much all
That's
I'm gonna
it.
say about that. So, shall we move on then
Let's do it.
to the next segment of yeah, Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls, which is where we talk about the unhealthy behaviors and coping mechanisms. Do you even have anything here? Like,
Okay, again, digging deep. My
yes.
question is, should Hannah really be going out with Norman to a romantic restaurant
Yeah.
just as a friend? Doesn't Norman have a girlfriend? Now, I don't have context. We never see this said girlfriend in this movie. So
Yeah.
they are kind of playing it as if something is like happening behind the scenes, but I was just like, Hannah, you should know better. Like,
Yeah.
if I mean, I guess I'm married, but I just think that's a weird situation.
Well, and that's the thing is the entire all throughout the 9 movies, even when she was engaged to Mike, Hannah's mom, Dolores, is the one that keeps pushing her towards Norman.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I think they might have dated. Like, I don't think she considered him a boyfriend and she wished she liked him. He's a dentist, by the way, which just seems super random. Um, I think her mom would rather her married to like a stable dentist
Hmm.
than a police detective or someone that's going to put her daughter in danger. And so she keeps pushing her. So I don't,
Yeah.
to be honest, I think I watched most of the mysteries, but again, it was like in the background. I cannot remember.
Mm,
Besides the fact that I know that Hannah was between like Norman and Mike, but her choice was Mike, her mom's choice was Norman. So,
gotcha.
anyways, I do think like even Hannah's like people pleaser ways of like she really wanted to say no, but still ended up on a date with Bradford. Like I feel is the same thing as like why she ended up with Norman. And yes, I did feel
True.
like it was strange. Like even I think it's funny that at the end they had Chad's character saying, "Hi, Dr. Rhodes, I met you when you were with Diana," because like Diana's not even in, she's mentioned, but you don't see her even once.
I know.
So yes, I agree. I had the same thing. Like Norman cares too much. Like I thought it was cute they had him at the end, but also inappropriate for him to be there, but appropriate because he just saved Hannah's life. So I get
Yeah,
that, but he shouldn't have been there.
I know. The only like again, I'll kind of get it. My stuff with Norman's more with the Oi with the poodles, but the
Same.
only other thing is there any toxic traits characters? I just said not sure if Chad is toxic, but he's definitely guarded.
Yes.
Hannah's trying to be nice. He won't okay. He wouldn't even take the cookies. Like it's just a nice gesture that she made the cookies and all he said was like, I don't eat sweets. And then he doesn't even take them. Like no acknowledgement of like the time that was spent and he just like walks away. But okay, we get
Hmm.
this. He's very cold to her. But then at
Yeah.
the restaurant when she's there with her mom and sisters, all of
Yeah.
a sudden he's like Mr. Charming
Yeah.
comes
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
table and I was like, whoa, and she's saying he's weird or annoying, I think she said. And then no one understands because he's totally clearly like a different person to them. So I was like, I mean, not enough to comment on, not enough to call toxic or whatever, but I was just like, okay, there's definitely more sides to you.
It's true. Well, I have to say this, and I was like, I don't know whether this goes in like the I section or the I don't go chasing waterfalls. It's kind of in between. But I will say that in the mysteries, Hallmark likes to do a slower burn with the romantic tension. Like they don't fall in love in 3 days for these mystery series.
True.
So in these mysteries, it's more like you're watching the flirting because it's more about the mystery than it is about the relationship. But then you get to a point where you're like, when's the DTR coming? Because like
Right.
for Hannah and Mike, it was like it took them like maybe 4 movies before they were together. I could be
Dang.
remembering wrong. 3 or 4 movies before it was like they're just flirting and there's literally nothing. And then all of a sudden there's a DTR and then they're like planning a wedding in 2 episodes. So I feel like they're doing the same thing. Like
Exactly.
a lot of these detectives are very like, we're being professional, this is legal, and you're pushing the limits. So they're pushing back because Hannah really shouldn't be involved this much. But at this point, because this is movie number 9, the not government officials, the police all know that like a lot of her clues have been integral in their search. So anyway, so I think he knows of her reputation. So he's trying to give her pushback. I'm interested to see what happens next. Sort of. Maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, the only other thing, which is just kind of annoying, or I don't know if this is always with the poodles, but like Hannah's such a people pleaser that she goes to discuss with Bradford what they're going to be baking in the next day's class.
The next day's class.
The next day.
I know.
And he doesn't give her a definitive answer and says he'll text her later. And it's like, when's she supposed to prepare the ingredients? She's like one of those, and this might be familiar. Not calling anyone out here, maybe myself. Where it's like you say yes to things and they're like, wait a second, how did I drift to this point where I'm like, this is overwhelming and not okay?
That is my life, so I
me.
get it.
Really similar in that way. Anyway, I mean, this girl is a teacher or a professor and a busy bakery owner where her inventory sells out. Like, how can she handle a last minute? Just stop it. Anyway, that's all. Oh, I will say this is my last thing in this section. Do you have anything more?
No.
The most cathartic thing, I feel like maybe it's cathartic, maybe not. You guys, this was so hard for me to follow that I had to watch the ending. Like I kept missing the ending of like what actually happened and who killed who and why. Not who killed who, but you know, who was the killer and why. Like I just kept losing interest. But it was somewhat cathartic when I finally watched and absorbed the information that at the end we hear about Bradford's text. Like they finally got into his phone and there was proof that he was gaslighting Perry, the brother, because and the girl Willa, like they're thinking like, oh, it's just in Willa's imagination, like she just is in love with him, but he's not with her. But then in the text it's like, oh no, it's not. And so that's why the brother's upset. But then he was trying to put it back on to the brother Perry to get him expelled. Like pure gaslighting. That makes more sense.
Yes.
Let's move on though to Aigu Oi with the poodles already. This is where we talk about plot holes, continuity issues, the wait, what, and what we didn't like. My first thing was, if he was such a tough professor, wouldn't there be more than one student that had an F?
Yeah. That was not really well thought out.
Okay, well, take it away. You said you had more here.
Oh, well, just going to that point, like it would have been more realistic that so many people had an F and that they wouldn't be able to narrow it down that quickly. Okay.
Yes.
Which comes to my point of, I also just felt like the script was really disjointed and rushed. Like the points weren't strong. It did take like rewinding to understand what was going on. Even like when I knew it was Willa and Perry, like I knew specifically it was Perry from the beginning, but it was still hard to understand what the big deal was that warranted Perry to kill Bradford. Like it wasn't clear right away.
Yeah.
Like
it wasn't clear until afterwards when they're doing the summation in the last scene.
Yeah, like it just, I didn't understand. I still didn't feel like I really understand the relationship with Bradford and Willa very well, right? Like we never see it. There's no flashback. Anyways, um, okay, so I know this was my first Hannah Swensen movie, and I'm glad to know because that was my question. How many was there before this? Um, I don't think they did a great job introducing characters. They have to assume that there are going to be many people like me that watch this as
Yeah.
like my first movie, and I find that a lot of movies like this have a moment of introduction that seamlessly weaves through the story that doesn't disrupt your avid viewer, someone that's been following the
Mm,
story, and they
yeah.
just did not do that because it actually wasn't until towards the end that I realized that those two girls were her sis. I knew that the blonde one was her sister, but I thought
Yeah.
the brunette one was her friend. And
I
I didn't
know.
realize that that was her sister. Also, no idea who Norman was and that they had this friendship. No idea who Mike was, except that he went to Quantico. Like I didn't know they were engaged. Um,
Mm,
so it just I I felt like it wouldn't have been hard for them to just fill in the gaps and they just
yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
Also I just don't feel like an English literature class would be combined with a baking one. I don't know why. It just is to me out of the realm of possibility. And if it was, there would be way more thought put into it. Like
Yeah.
the chiffon cake or whatever they were making, I was just like, I don't know. The explosion, just weird. It didn't
It
seem
still
that
didn't make
big.
sense to me.
No, and even like when it happened, it wasn't that big. But then when they went back to it, it was like the room was black, the doors were black, and more
Yeah, it
people
was in
wouldn't
the
have been
front of
harmed.
the classroom.
I
Why do the
know,
other students have anything on their faces? Like,
I know. Also the whole Bradford's phone situation, like come on. You're saying that there's no technology out there right now for the police that allows them to like get into a phone. I just don't believe it. Um why was Dolores spying on Hannah at the beginning? Do they ever say why?
I think I think she was just practicing. Like,
Okay. Cuz I was like I never like I feel like that never had a close.
no.
Um And then going back, I said I also didn't feel like they really laid out the relationship Willa had with Bradford and then Perry's reason for the explosion. Like I know they touched on it, but it wasn't compelling enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, okay. That is my plot holes, my wait whats. I don't understand. Do better next time.
I think as you watch more Hallmark mysteries, you learn to manage your expectations with Hallmark mysteries. Um, by the way, Alison Sweeney wrote, produced, and starred in this one. That's the new triple threat, I feel like, is to write,
Oh.
direct, star instead of the sing dance act.
Mm.
Um, I felt like this one, again, I've said this, I felt like it was better than the other ones somehow. I don't know. It felt the right balance of like, it felt lighter and fluffier than the other ones.
Okay.
And anyway, but I did like, it's called Apple Turnover Murder or One Bad Apple. Like, if you are doing the cold open that involves a candy apple, and in the picture, she's taking, or in the beginning where it's like you're watching Hannah unload her car and her mom's taking pictures of her, and you see her take out an apple that has a
And a
knife in
knife.
it. Tie that into the story somehow for me, please. Like,
I
why is
know.
there an apple
Too
with a
random.
knife? This is the
Yeah.
second movie in a row, two Hallmark movies in a row that leaves us hanging about an
I know.
apple. Like, we want to know. It's just sad. That's the most
So
thing we want to
funny.
know. What happens with the apple? Why couldn't her mom tell Hannah about her new PI venture at the bakery, but then she could in the bathroom of the Chameleon restaurant? Like, it was just very strange timing. It was
I know.
cute, but
But
strange
strange.
timing. And when this is all about Dolores, when she's trying to discreetly take pictures of the documents at the flower shop, like she's going through the
Oh my
mail
gosh.
discreetly, she doesn't pull out like a discreet phone. She pulls out her
That's like
SLR camera to
I
take
know.
screenshots of a
That
document.
actually fundamental issues with that whole scene. I'm like, this is so unrealistic. So unrealistic. And then opening someone's mail, like it was unclear whether that mail was opened or not. And I was just like, this is, I don't know, too much.
Yeah, and tell me, maybe I just haven't been to as elaborate of a proposal, but why would you need tarp and a duct tape? I just for a proposal. And that Norman was the one to figure that out? Like,
I have no idea.
and then also when he figured it out, why did the three of them, Hannah, Dolores, and Norman, have to be there in person to tell Stacy? Wouldn't Stacy be like, why is Norman here? And isn't this a breach of privacy that you're my PI, but you brought in two other people? You're discussing my what?
Yeah.
Especially if this is like a small town.
It's
And
so
also
true.
for a small town, there's just a lot of murders. And unfortunately in this series, there's no other mystery besides there're just lots of murders.
Mm-hmm. Lots of murders.
I think that's it. The end.
The end. For Happily Ever After, I have no idea. The only thing that's becoming obvious just for my contextual opinion is that there's clearly going to be some tug of war of Hannah between Newman and Chad. Newman's probably going to break up with his girlfriend.
You mean Norman? She can't even remember
Newman?
the character.
Norman. I think I call him. Oh no, I said I
You've been
literally
saying
wrote
Norman.
Okay, good.
I love it. I think yes, for the Jayo Paiting Happily Ever After, usually either at least one of us gets really creative and has like our imagination runs away with us. This is what we think happens after the movie or who we're rooting for. I hope they do the pumpkin chiffon pie murder for a fall. I feel like the fall. Actually, my other favorite one, besides they only did one Christmas one. It was called like plum baked pudding or something. I hope they do a fall one. I actually hope then she and Victor get together in number 2. Give the people what they want. Stop with the slow burns. I don't know. That's all I have. I hope you do pumpkin chiffon pie murder. I don't care what happens because it's a great just like in the background movie. That's all I got. Are we done? We're done.
We are done.
There are certainly no favorite quotes. Oh my gosh, that's what I didn't put. I forgot to say in the Oi with the Poodles.
Yeah.
All the poetry he kept quoting.
Oh gosh. That was
Did you ever have a guy write you poetry?
Thank goodness no.
And cringe. Ugh. Well, they write it and then when they read it too, it's like, ugh. Anyways, hopefully someone can fix that for me. We are watching Falling in Love in Niagara next. Yay. Are you looking forward to it?
I am.
Keep the expectations low, but enjoy the scenery.
I am. I'm going to.
All right. See you guys next week.
Thanks for breaking script with us. Please share this episode on your socials and tag at the Breaking Script Podcast. Follow and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. And if you haven't yet, please rate and review an Apple Podcast so we can spread more Hallmark glimmers with the world. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.